Your lippert. Hey,
Liver.
we're live, gang. Welcome to the hashtag handle it hot minute. I almost said hold my beer. It's the same thing. Revised version.
Except
Tony,
I was going to
has
say, is everybody drinking a beer? Because I could have grabbed one too.
Oh, you know what? Tony's got Dr. Pepper, but he said his liver hurts from that conference you guys were at. But I always have one on hand. Here in Indiana, there's not a lot to do, so you always have a cooler at least somewhere around.
Right next to the desk, like it.
Yeah. So, hey, listen, we got Blythe on the show. I've been wanting to get her on. I've seen, I see some of her posts. Probably in the last couple months, I messaged you just on the sales and marketing, and it's been, for me, it was big because it, when I was helping, grow a brokerage before, it was like I did a lot of marketing, I like doing that stuff, but it was like that was part of sales. It wasn't. We didn't have a marketing team. We didn't have anybody. There was no strategies. It was just, and I ended up marketing myself more than anything. But at the same time, it was. It really opened my eyes to the fact that it's huge when it comes to sales because you're getting, outreach and things that people are coming to you rather than, the whole vice versa. So, Blythe's an expert in that. I mean, some of the posts she puts out there, I'm like, oh, I'm like, read it through. There's like 4 or 5 points. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Tony, you look mad. You all right, bub?
I have no interest in marketing. I don't know. Like that.
I forgot this show's all about you, Tony. I forgot.
It is not about me, TJ. I'm just kidding. No, it was really cool, like at TMSA, to see like the other side of what they're struggling with, what they're fighting, and just to hear, like our little brief panel was like way too short, I thought, but I think we could have kept going. By the time it ended, we were done, and I was like, there's so much more. We gotta peel the onion. But it was interesting to see like the people that followed up and the questions that they had were like. They made me I don't want to say, man, I can't say that. I'm trying to say this without making them sound bad because those people are way smarter than me. But it sounded like elementary stuff from my point of view because they're on the other side. So it was just like, how do you not know that? You guys are so smart. You guys are like marketing people, and it just seemed basic from my point of view because just the tables were turned, and it was interesting.
Well, I think just marketing in general, it has become really over the last 10 years, we have shifted as far as, what marketing is supposed to do. And I would argue that marketing has become over-reliant on technology and tools. And a lot of marketers, the overwhelming majority of them, just listen to what the software vendors tell them to do. And a lot of that strategy is outdated. It was already kind of on the way out, but COVID kind of expedited that part of it. And now you can kind of, I think the overwhelming majority of people can see through the email templates, can see through the campaigns, can see through sort of the marketing BS. And they haven't yet caught up with it because they're still too reliant on a lot of tools and a lot of what these software vendors have told them to do for years. And so that's personally what I struggle with, especially like at the executive level, just trying to get them to understand that we cannot rely on all of these tools, and marketing is a little bit of science and it's a little bit of creative, and it's combining the two together. And then you're not going to be able to prove the ROI on every single LinkedIn post or, every single email that you send. And I think that there's a confusion and an obsession among many marketers to be able to put in, be able to attribute everything to an ROI because that's what the executive team expects.
Right. I really got a kick out of your morning show with Trey when we were there because I have poked around with AI just enough to know that it could be really dangerous. But I've also read some posts that I guarantee you were written by AI. I don't know God, again, I sound like I'm some smart person, but I don't think it's that hard to read a post and say, wow, that guy didn't write that. But like I'm not poking at you. I'm just saying I want to play with it. I want to use it. I want to poke around with it enough to know that I could frame something up, get an idea, and kind of like regurgitate the thought process, read it, and then rewrite it in my words.
Yeah.
And I think that that's exactly what,
Did I freeze up again?
that's how AI helps me. It helps me to go from, a blank page to something that is post worthy. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how many times that like I have loaded up a podcast and I'm getting ready to hit schedule on it. And I don't know what the title should be. I don't know what the description should be. But if I upload the transcript to AI and it gives me, a little blurb, I could say, "Oh, I hate that." Or, "Ooh, oh, I love, that sentence or that sentence." That's enough to get me going to where I can write that show
Yeah.
description that much quicker. So it's not necessarily like copying and pasting, but it definitely gets the creative juices flowing.
So I think Nick just put a great comment in there. AI is to help you so you can spend more time on the creativity. And I think that's a
Yes.
great point because, like I said before, the marketing I've done has not been, I see a lot of people, on LinkedIn, like, oh, I'm getting this many followers, this blah, blah, blah. Right. But it's like, valuable content. And then the in sales, especially, the strategy on follow-ups and, responses and things like that. Like those are things that are hard to track yourself. Like it just takes a lot of time to be like, okay, for every one of these types of emails, but it's like AI can say, hey, these are like 3 or 4 different follow-ups I have. The response is this, this could be, the follow, and then the follow-up set for every 2 days or whatever, whatever, with no response. I mean, like you could do a lot of things that make you much more efficient, gives you time to be creative and make those templates or whatever it is that you want to do, and then have it really help you with the organization of it all and the strategy that goes into it. Because strategy and organization are one thing, but creativity, you have to have those 3 together. But it takes time for all, obviously it takes time for all 3, and that could just, it's just time consuming. So that's a great point by Nick there.
I also think it's a rare breed that can have that element of creativity and science together. I mean,
Yeah.
some people are either left brain, right brain, and you either have your like really creative folks or your really analytical folks. Again, throwback to the conference, like Jesse was the creative one and Jared was the logical black and white. From the bananas. Jesse's the guy with the yellow suit and the top hat and all that, and you see him like MC in the event. But
and I want to apologize, Tony. I was supposed to be there when Tony was speaking.
I
told him I would be there. I told him I'd be in the front row of the sign, and I told him, all these things. That I'm going to speak at a conference here in a month or so, and I had to pick between the 2, and it was just one of those things. But Tony, I've got something I want to play for you here.
Oh my God.
To really express like my feelings on missing this conference, because you mean a lot to me. So possibly.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right. Wow.
I just want you to stay. After all that we've been through, I will make it up to you. I promise to.
So, it's hard for me to express my feelings myself. So I went to Chicago to make it happen for me, Tony. So
very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
I'll be in Chicago in September. Are you going to that, Blythe?
No, I'm going on a bachelorette party. So I think what you're referring to is the executive summit from the TMSA.
No, the inland logistics.
Oh, that one. No, that one I'm probably not. October is already like jam packed for me. I literally have a work conference every month from August, September, October, November, and then December. No conferences, thank God.
Wow.
And Tony,
you're out there all the time. Holy smokes!
One thing about Tony, though, you guys can understand is like, you look at marketing and things like that, right? Me and Blythe, like we do it, but at the end of the day, guys, it's business is business. Like there's a reason behind it, right? And there's a strategy. Now you could still be true and genuine and help. And Tony has nothing to gain from any of this. Like I still don't even know why he does it, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like his true value is making a big nacho bar for his people. I'm just kidding. But no, like
it is. But I love that stuff.
You want to find somebody that has a true passion for logistics or a true passion for all these types of things. He comes on again. He doesn't. Marketing's not a passion of his, but he'll get involved in the conversation. I remember when we first started this show, he was, it was Brandon Bay and John Brewer, right? It was his shipper mentor, right? And still is, and then me and Tony. And John was like, wanted it to be very scripted and everything. He wasn't against like the back and forth. I was like, man, I like to just kind of freestyle it.
Mhm.
And Tony was like, man, I'm just not a good public speaker. I don't know what to say. I sound like an idiot. And he was so worried. And after like the first 3 episodes or the first 3 shows, people were like, Tony's freaking awesome. And like, but what you said though earlier, Tony, is the stuff that that's basic, that's elementary to you. I mean, nobody gets to talk to shippers. Nobody hears. They all lay in the shadows. I told you that the other day. They even on LinkedIn, they'll drive the rates down. They'll try to get their profits back. They'll put carriers against brokers, right? All blaming each other, and they'll sit back and watch it. Like they don't get involved in all. You know what I mean? Like they have that thing going. So
I just chime in and be like, "Hey guys, how's it going?"
But because the benefit to them, it's not there. I mean, there is no ROI, I guess you'd call it, at the end of the day on that at all. But you still do it. So, it's something that, I say find your Tony, but, it's something that, we all feed off of and we all appreciate. But it also makes me, and I know Blythe is one that I've always liked too, because we're more genuine, we're more just kind of upfront. We're not, listen, we all want to, get new business and whatnot at the end of the day, but it's still like, people are going to like you for you, and people are going to like logistics for logistics. And it's that. And if you try to force it, and like Blythe said, you just get obsessed with the ROI and all these numbers and everything, it's just going to drive you to the ground. You're going to burn out, and you're really not going to be as successful.
100%. I think for a lot of folks that they try to measure every little thing. It's almost like when you decide that you're gonna. I'm gonna steal this analogy from another marketer that I really respect, but it's like when you start going to the gym a lot and you get in shape. You can't attribute ROI to that single bicep that you did or bicep curl that you did, 3 months ago. It all matters. It all is about generating brand awareness, letting people know who you are and what you're about, and winning before that your competition, winning before that visitor gets to Google and goes to search for a keyword. Mm-hmm. Instead, they're searching for you. They're searching for your brand name, and that's what I've always strived as far as a marketer. And I only call myself a marketer out of necessity. I couldn't afford to hire a marketing agency. I was the marketing department at, the 3PL that I worked at. It was just a matter of just trial by error and trial by fire. And let's throw you in the deep end and see if you can swim. Wow. And, it's one of those things where you have to just keep trying new things. You have your methodologies, and you have your certain foundational things that you do, such as, having a really strong website, having a social media presence. You don't have to have a social media presence on all the accounts, but having that genuine presence, and then being able to, create that sort of ecosystem around you of the kind of business that you want to attract. And I think that for a lot of marketers, they like I said earlier, they've been stuck in this, what HubSpot taught everyone 10 years ago. And a lot of those strategies just don't exist. And then a lot of the strategies that are being taught today are to prove the value of the software that you're using, not necessarily the tactic or the strategies that you're using.
That, and I will tell you this, I was at Circle. It was a really great experience. Like what you said, I was through the fire a lot. I learned a lot from that though. But I was also able to be side by side with the owners as we grew from a $40 million to a $600 million broker. It's just like all of the steps, all of the things that, and one big thing that they, we were penny pinchers. There's no doubt about it. And I think you got to be to in some cases. But one big thing they always talked about was, non-revenue producing roles, especially in logistics. So, somebody can come in as a carrier sales rep or account manager or a salesperson and have numbers behind them that this is the revenue that they're producing compared to what their salary is or what their pay is. And it was tough. And we struggled on how important some of those, that was a phase we went through. Some of those non-revenue producing roles were, how important they were, and that we weren't paying a lot. So we were getting bottom of the barrel. And then you realize then how much they actually do produce revenue. And if not just produce revenue, but also maintain revenue. Because revenue, especially in recruiting, I found, drivers was like, if you can't retain drivers, then you're gonna put all your effort into recruiting them, and you're just treading water. You're not going anywhere. You're losing them and you're gaining them, right, back and forth. And so those roles are important. So like you said, they're tracking. A lot of them want to track the, what your value is as a market. They're testing it out, right? Do we even need a marketing department? So we want to know where's our ROI at? Where's our numbers at? And I will tell you this, the biggest thing you could do, and it's in sales and in marketing, this is where it really comes together for me. You have to be able to explain your strategy. You have to be able to communicate what your mindset is, because in your head, it all makes sense, right? But Blythe, one thing I've noticed that you put on a post is that it takes time. People want it done within, X amount of time, but it takes time, right? So if I land a new account and I say, hey, what's the ROI on this? Right? Well, we've got these shipments. We took a loss on a couple of them, but I see the potential. No, I want to lay it out before we even start. Hey, listen, when we start, we'll start low volume. We'll probably take some loss, but here's why, right? I know I can get into their expedite side. I know the margins on that, the volume, the in and outs here. This is our goal. By 3 months, I want to be here, right? So now when they sit down, they look at their ROI, they're like, hey, okay, this is his strategy. We're not there yet, compared to just looking at the numbers and saying, hey, we're in the negatives on this. Why are we even doing it? And then you put on the spot and you're like, and you can't spit it out, right? So it's so important to have sales feed off marketing, not just from, what you can bring in business-wise to be on the same page, but what you can learn from each other when it comes to, needing time or needing strategy and whatnot, and even partnering up or pairing on something. And Blythe, how much do you see that? I mean, like literally like, hey, I'm a sales guy. Here's one market in the marketing department, and we're going to pair up. We're going to partner on this. This is going to be our objective to go after this, whatever it is. If it's a division or a type of part of the industry or whatever it is.
In my experience, sales is not communicating at all with marketing whatsoever. But the best organizations that I've worked in have communicated, that have started to kind of see the light. The 3PLs that I've worked at, it's most of the sales guys are kind of like on an island by themselves. And, that could kind of speak to, I guess the training level of, the 3PLs that I've worked at. But most of the time they, especially in my experience, they never wanted to hear about the concept of inbound marketing. Trying to get them to use email marketing software was the biggest pain in the ass. And it would really it all fell on the shoulders of the marketing person, which was me. And I was a team of one. So it was always a little challenging and a little annoying, because they were always looking for the easy way out. They were buying email lists, they were buying leads off Zoom info, and then they would just send blanket cold emails. One particular situation is one girl in the office. She was trying to do things the right way. She believed in inbound marketing and doing research on a cold email before you send it out to a prospect. She had been working on a big beverage company for months. And then another random person, sales guy in the office, had gotten that email contact and ended up emailing her contact. And she lost out on that bid because the guy said, well, if you don't know what's going on within your own office, how are you going to know what's going on with my freight? And that is how she and she was furious because she was trying to do things the right way. But from an organizational standpoint, there were no systems, no structure in place. The sales guys were really just, operating on their own island. And that probably is more of an organizational thing versus, anything else. Yes. But that's where the biggest issues were, is that everybody was kind of, flying by the seat of their pants, doing their own thing. There was really no long-term sales vision or sales strategy or sales goals. It was guys with a book of business that came into the office. They were already used to doing their own thing, and they were going to keep doing it that way. That's
man, I'm so glad you touched on that. So, leading sales teams it's been my number one objective every time I come in, is to get. Now, I haven't been many places where there actually is a marketing department, and if there is, you don't really hear. They're kind of real separate,
right?
But a lot of times that's almost sits second fiddle to the fact that sales guys don't even have good communication with operations. And you can't, it just drives me nuts. So the biggest accounts I've ever landed, and when I was really successful in sales, really, was when I was like just engrossed in operations, when I didn't even have time. So like what you said, I didn't have time to send out a ton of cold emails. You know what I mean? I'd send out 10 emails in a week, but I'd get responses from like 3 of them because it was so specific and so based on like what their needs were. Like I knew, I focused, and I like really did the research on it. And then because I was engrossed in operations, I knew what I could tell them I could do, what I couldn't do, what I'd like to do. and a strategy there because they want to hear that too. So when I would bring it in, it was so easy to just flow it in, right? I had it all laid out. I got an SOP. I got everything there. I come into some of these places and they're like, yeah. They bring the account in, and then you get like residual, percentage on it as it goes. And then they get over to the operations team and they just fuck it up. They have no idea what the strategy is. They have no idea what the guy told them. And then all of a sudden they wonder why their main contact comes back and is like, hey man, what's going on, man? Like you said you were going to do this and this was going to happen and none of this is happening. And it's so weird to see that happens so often and people just let it happen. And it's like, even if you're a sales guy, like if you want all the time you put into to landing that customer, if you want that 5% or whatever it is you get on all the margin made and then residuals through the years, wouldn't you want it to be successful? Wouldn't you want it to have the most margin you could possibly have? Like you could keep trying to land other customers and move on, or you could just focus on that one and get that one up and going and growing and then move on. And I think it's the same. And I think that's maybe why, the marketing and sales hasn't because that sales to operations is such a big thing that isn't happening, that it's like, what's more important? You know what I mean? Like at the time, you're right though. The organization of a sales team has got to be laid out with a vision and a connection with resources to each division that you have in your company.
I thought you would. I really wish you would have been there because Tony said this at the conference, and Cody said this at the conference, and I said this at the conference. There is no cold email. I've never seen a cold email work on a shipper that knows what they're doing. It's not just like, throw some stuff up against the wall, see what sticks, and then somebody goes, oh, okay, I'll just ship my stuff with you because we're in it together. It's a partnership where I have to entrust my business with you, and I'm not going to do that to some cold email offering a ton of services. I'm going to do that to somebody who I trust my job to because we have a relationship. And I feel like I have that trust with certain people. And that doesn't come from a cold email. That comes from a relationship. Mm-hmm. And you don't get a relationship without a cold email. And the cold email doesn't come as a proposition. It comes as maybe a comment on another post. And then next thing you know, you've got a dialogue and an interaction. And 2 months later, you're talking just, like Blythe, you were saying with that young lady that was working on the big beverage company, that sucks for her. My gosh, I would be so pissed too. But
yeah, that
could have been a career changing move for her. I mean, it blows my mind, but the stuff that you guys are doing is drastically important. And like I said this other thing too, I told the marketing and sales people there, turn your marketing on to the ops people and tell them to stop demanding quotas. Quantity is not the answer. Quality is the answer.
Yes. Yep. And then you what it allows you to do too, and this is how I explain it to my team and why I've always been successful in this with the team is because, it allows you to really find your niche. You know what I mean too? I mean, like what you can really specialize in, because you're going to find if you're out there and you're just cold emails, like you forget even what that customer does or whatever it is. Like if you're really focusing on something and then you're like, man, I'm getting some traction over here in this, right? And then you can really just specialize in that. Now you've got accounts that are all kind of based around the same thing. Right? I mean, the same commodity, the same type of thing that you're doing. And if not, then it's harder to have that float operations. It's harder to have to maintain those customers and talk to them. One big thing that I always loved doing was being like, hey, I know who Ford is. I know who Expeditors. I know these automotive companies. I've had a lot of success with them. I still do. These guys talk. Like they know who has good supply chain and who doesn't. They know what Walmart does, right? They know what all these things are. And when you bring that up, they're like, okay, yeah, that does make sense because we'd like to be more like them, or our strategies are kind of the same, or whatever it is. But something that would, kept me in the same niche, whether it was automotive or whatever it was. But like Tony said, it could be cold, but it's just creative too. One of the best customers, not biggest, but best customers I ever landed was I'm on LinkedIn and I see this. I look at everything, but it's like, wish this person happy birthday. It's their birthday today, right? You get that notification. So I go and I look and I see that she is the supply chain, head of supply chain for a small supplier. They supply automotive and up in the Detroit area, which I'm up there all the time. We have trucks up there. So I look at it and then I see she used to work for Guardian Glass. And so instead of, I hit like and put, happy birthday or whatever. And then, or congratulations on her new role. I'm sorry, it was congratulations on her new role. So then I put congrats or whatever. Then I sent an email, and the subject line was just congrats is in order. And I just put in there, hey, congrats on the new role. You know, I wanted to reach out and just, you know, let you know, I know it's new to you. You're taking over everything, but I did a lot of work with Guardian Glass in the past, and I know their supply chain. So if you're coming from there, I know you'll do just fine. And I said, you know, hey, you know, congrats again. Best wishes to you. By the way, I've got trucks, Sprinter vans, all types of stuff up in the Detroit area. If you ever run into any issues, let me know. But I just wanted to stop by and say congrats. And, you know, her response was, thank you so much. And actually, you know, where are they at up in Detroit area? Right. And then the conversation starts, you know, and it was just very one of those like one-off things. I'm, you know, I don't know, I was in the car or whatever as I saw it, but it had something to do with what, you know, meant something to me or what I know I could do or where I was or something that was, yeah, it's cold, but at the same time, it's different. That, like Tony said, that relationship or that thing where it's like, hey, this guy might actually help me. For you to come in and make that up and say, I happen to have trailers dropped in Auburn Hills and then you name some customers that are up there and you name those things, like that's a lot to know those things. And that, I think that really validates it.
And that's interesting you say that, because I was just listening to the Freight 360 guys podcast, Ben and Nate, and they were talking about, and they have this great series. You know, they bring the Produce Blue Book guys on. They talk about different commodities and knowing, like they just had an episode about like cherries and blueberries and knowing, you know, how long you have for that truck to sit there and the experience level that you need for those types of shipments, and being able to have that knowledge base before you reach out to any of them goes a long way. And I think that is something, like, as a marketer, that I would have loved to be able to have some kind of insight as to who you're prospecting, why you're going after them, commodities. So then that way I can help you. I can create that content for you ahead of time. 9 times out of 10, though, it was a sales guy coming to me the day before he leaves to go to a conference and saying, can you make a quick PowerPoint deck for me? And it's just that was the number one request that we got, instead of, you know, just marketers like to plan. I could speak for myself when I say that I like to have a good campaign plan. We have editorial calendars. We have the whole 9. So being able to work that into my content plan, into my social media plan, that would have been such a huge help. And I think a lot of marketers could really save themselves and save their role and save their job by sitting in on sales meetings regularly. Or if the meetings are remote, having some kind of like a note-taking app. We talked about, you know, AI earlier. Have your note-taking app automatically join those meetings, take those notes, send you takeaways, and then those are your content ideas right there. So it's trying to combat a lot of these problems that have existed in between, you know, marketing versus sales over the last sort of decade, with, you know, all of the technology that's come into play with both of those roles. And then how can we use these technologies, these tools, and these strategies to work together more efficiently? But also, it really just takes sitting in and doing the legwork and understanding, as a marketer, what is driving revenue. If you don't understand what's driving revenue, then it's really, really challenging to create that content that's going to be helpful for the sales team. And then it's also going to be helpful to keep your job, you know, as far as the executive role is concerned.
And that's a partner idea too. And I love that you said that, because when you find something that works as a salesperson, if you can, like, one thing I guess, again, I love learning new things. I just thought about this. Like, I want to replicate that on a larger scale from the standpoint of like you said. So take what you know, right? So say you got Meyer, right? I know Meyer. God, I know the ins and outs. They're a pain in the ass sometimes, right? But I know why. Like, I know that, you know, the drop trailers have to be by a certain time, and where they come from and what their yards look like and how they load things and what their staging is and all those things, and why they're going from, you know, what DCs they're going to then to stores and how their inbound works. So why not use that and find companies that are similar and say, hey, I've got a lot of experience. They know Myers and Payne, everybody does. So it's like, hey, I've mastered that. This is what I can do now. And then all of a sudden it works, right? So say it works, right? So now you go, okay, man, if you could replicate that, guess what? You can. You got to market. You sit down and you say, hey, this is why I've always told people, make friends with people and find your allies and somebody that can cover your freight well, carry yourself, be their best friend, buying gift cards, tracking department. Somebody tracks the hell out of your loads. Be their best friend. Buy them gift cards. I used to do all the time. They're going to take care of your stuff. Sit down with one of the marketing people and say, hey, this has really worked for me. Like, this is what I have experience in. This is the type of company I want to go after. What can you sit down and put together and plan, like Blythe just said, that we can really get this out there more, right? And so now, salespeople are always looked at as like, oh, they're the ones bringing in all the revenue and everything. Owners, all these guys always look to them as big things. Now, as a marketing person, you've got some dude that's going to be, hey, this Blythe over here marketing, she's killing it for me. You know what I mean? Like these accounts I've landed, I landed them, but like she put all this together. So now you've got somebody like vouching for you as well. And the replication of what you can do and what you've seen successful can be made that way by your marketing department, because you've got all these other things you got to do, and it's hard to do.
100%. And I know that it's challenging for sales folks to maybe think and project in the future. Maybe I'm not exactly sure. I'm just kind of guesstimating here. But that to kind of play off of what they're experiencing and what they're going through and market conditions and everything like that. As a marketer, it's no longer excusable to not understand what's driving revenue. Sort of COVID changed all that. I learned this lesson the hard way myself. I launched a product back in the summer of 2022, and it failed miserably. I got all the marketing, or not miserably. I got some sales out of it, but not as much as I thought I was going to get. Right. And as I thought I did all of the right things. I got the content out. I got the press coverage. I built the website. I built all the marketing things, but I forgot the crucial thing. And that is, you have to listen to customers. And if you're not actively listening to customers, sitting in on sales meetings, sitting in on those prospect meetings, getting that kind of insight, your marketing will fail. And it's up to marketers now. I mean, with all of AI, with all of these tools coming in, it's really going to separate the good marketers from the really bad marketers that are just going through the motions and just doing everything that HubSpot taught them, 10 years ago, and not adapting to what the current market is requiring of them to keep their role.
Yeah. And how much do you see? So the other thing, I want to ask you a question. How much do you see, again, companies trying to save money, kind of put more than one role? How much do you see recruiters being used as marketing, or marketing being used for recruiting from that standpoint? Because I see that combination of things quite a bit, because I've always said too, the recruiters got to be in these sales meetings. They got to be in here. They got to know, they got to be on the floor and know what they're, I mean, they can't just, they would recruit, they'd bring them in, they'd promise them something, and we'd sit down, I'd sit down and interview with them. I'd be like, oh, I promised you this, or is it this? And I finally was like, just be more vague with it. But I really wanted them to be a part of it. But I also saw that they were doing marketing, and I'd be on LinkedIn, right? So, and I knew what I was doing on LinkedIn, and I feel like I was marketing specifically for what we were doing. And I'm watching what they're putting out there, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, it was like driving me nuts. I'm like, I work for this company. This person's marketing this. And it's like, first of all, we can't even do that. Second of all, you got one like on it, and it's just a blanket. Like, it's not even, and then they're recruiting as well. So how much do you see that now? I mean, do you notice that more?
So there are two things. So with a lot of the takeaways that I heard from this week's conference at TMSA is that for a lot of marketing departments, especially the bigger ones, the ones that have, several teams where only one team is working on content, another team is just events, another team is just advertisements. All of those folks are working in their own silos too. And so there's a lot of challenges there where they're not communicating with each other. They're only concerned with their own roles and responsibilities. So there's, for a lot of the bigger marketing departments, that's, there's a conflict in that regard. But then there's another conflict in the recruiting world where when you are recruiting employees, you're putting, I don't want to throw like shade on like, third-party tools or anything like that, but there's a way to incorporate third-party tools with your own owned content brand. So a website is the biggest one. I have a couple clients that they would recruit drivers, so they would recruit employees only under their own umbrella, under their own brand, paying for advertisements and things like that. But they're sending that traffic to a third-party site, and that third-party site is miserable. It's terribly designed. It's a bad user experience. You don't get access to that first-party data, so you have no idea unless that application is actually completed on if that was a successful campaign. You can only see it from the lens of, did that person click on this link? But you don't know if they actually completed the process of what you wanted them to do. So for me, that what we've done is we've done a little bit of a workaround solution to that, where we create a mini application on the company's website where you gather just super basic info, name, contact email, and then a phone number where we can reach you. And then you capture that information before sending them off to that third party application. My biggest issue with that is because as a marketer, I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink. And I especially can't make you drink if I don't control that platform, or if I don't control the entire process.
And have no ability to follow up.
Yes. And then there's that issue as well, where you get the lead and they come through, they're interacting on the chat system, but there's nobody in customer service or within tracking or something like that that's actually interacting on the chat. It's just a glorified email service. Or they fill out a lead form on the site and nobody follows up with them. So there's all of these different components within the marketing journey that you really got to have buttoned up in order to really be able to prove the value of the work that you're creating. And so there's all of these different silos and technology tools, and then just the basics of just not following up. I would say that I don't want to say that recruiting is probably the number one, I guess, sort of not violator of it, but the number one sort of annoyance when I see some of those things. But it is a big proponent, especially for brokerages, because for brokers, when it comes to your website, 9 times out of 10, the only people that are coming to your site to convert are going to be potential employees. Shippers, I mean, Tony, you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know how many shippers actually go to a broker's website and fill out a lead form. It's
not at all.
But they'll go visit it.
And they're all the same.
I want your take on this, Blythe. I think it just proved your value tremendously, because I think there's a lot of companies that have people that were in marketing, right? And maybe a different field or whatever, that come in and they're in marketing. And the strategy they're given, the path they're given is by the owners or whoever it is, and they don't have that. And I think that's where your value comes in, because you do a lot more consulting, right? Like, I'll come in and you may have good marketers, but they need a path, they need a strategy, they need something that they know has been proven to work by somebody with experience. But I will tell you this, especially in sales, they do visit your website, and when you don't have a good website, the last one I had. The website was terrible. I mean, it never was even updated. I mean, because they kind of switched companies a little bit. I made a sales deck, which I always make one anyways. And it's about a 6-7 PowerPoint thing that you put together that just kind of gives like everything because what I found was I'd reach out to them and they go, hey, I just went and looked at your website though, and I don't see anything, or whatever. So they're going to just Google it real quick, right? Before they even respond to your email. Mm-hmm. And so I would add this in there and be like, to try to keep them from going to the website because it was so pathetic. So I'm adding this in there that had like, our scat codes and where we go, where we freight, this and that, blah, 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 who to contact, my contact info, just real quick. And I'd always put in like, here's a quick overview. If you want some more information, I found a way to make it a link, right? So that whether they had PDF reader or not, they could still go and see it, right? Because I've made it into a PDF. But because I literally was trying to not have them, instead of directing them to my website, I was trying to keep them from going to it because I was embarrassed by it.
Wow.
How important is that? They look at it more than you think.
It's very important. And I don't just say this as somebody who runs like a website management company. Like, it is so simple right now to be able to spin up a quick website. You can go to Squarespace, all these AI tools, Canva, for God's sakes, you can make a website super quick. But in today's world, especially in the age of all of this fraud going on and double brokers, and you want to be able to prove to somebody that you are a real, legitimate company that is serious about their future and invested in their future. And your social media and your website are some of those first touch points to say, let me see if this company is actually legit, because your cold email, your cold call, however you're communicating with folks, they're going to Google you before they ever reach out to book a meeting with you. And in order to verify that all of the other things that you've said are accurate. So if you don't have a decent website, it's never been easier to sort of spin one up really, really quick. make a simple one-page website, kind of like a Linktree style website,
Right.
where it's all of the pertinent information on one page, but at least you have something to verify that you are a real legitimate company. And the more you can kind of expand on it, prove that you're a trustworthy company, that logos of references, testimonials, videos, social media content, all of these things that you can pull into your site automatically, that you don't, I mean, I'm sure maybe some people are saying, well, I don't have time to update this, all the time, every day. You only need to redesign your site probably, I say at least once every 3 years. I typically do it at about once a year and a half, get it to a really good place. But the number one thing is to make sure the damn forms on your site work, so that when you do all of that other legwork and you do all of that other selling, that when the person is actually ready to buy, then that conversion is as easy as possible for that person. Otherwise, you probably lost them forever.
Yeah, because they're going to it, whether they, again, like I said, whether they get the email and they go Google or whatever, or like you said, they look you up on LinkedIn. What do they do? What do you do when you look up LinkedIn? You go to your profile, you scroll down, you see they work here, and you click on the company name of where they work. Well, then now the company page comes up. Well, when the company page comes up, what does it give you? Nothing really, except a website link. Mm-hmm. Now they click on the website link, so they're going to find their way there. And also just companies individual. I find it a lot with small ones. Like there would be small manufacturers around the area that would call and be like, hey, I went to your website and I saw I really just need this shipment moved. We usually use our own trucks, blah blah blah. It's kind of a one-off thing, but like if you're good, we might use you more for backup. But like I went to your website, I thought like there's more people coming through there than what you think. And I think Blythe's onto something there, because it's like it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It just has to be able to be a portal to guide you, to where you want to go and get you in contact with, like, okay, this person reached out now. Okay, now I reach out to them. Now we have that warm introduction because they've already, put their name in or visited or whatever it is.
And that can really be alleviated by marketing, just prioritizing sitting in on sales meetings. You made a good point earlier, TJ, about sitting in on meeting with the regular operations team on a regular basis. These things help you understand what they're going through, so you can better convey that in the content that you're creating, so everything is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a great quote, I think it was from somebody within Redwood, that they actually market to their internal employees first before they market externally, so that everybody within the company is speaking the same language, understands what's going on. So then that way, when a call does come in, or when you're trying to make that process of that sales or that sale happen, that things are consistent throughout your social media, throughout the phone presence, and then on your digital platforms as well.
That's really smart. I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to wrap up, Tej.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Tony's got a dance recital to go to for himself. It's interpretive dance.
What I do on my time is my time.
It's interpretive dance for shippers. It's called staging on stage. But no, I think that's a great point. We got to roll. Again, Blythe, great point there. If I'm a marketer, I'm going and I'm saying, hey, what are our top accounts? I want to sit down with that account manager or group or dispatch team and say, hey, what are we successful at? What are we good at? What are we doing well with? That's all it takes.
It's content goal.
But reach out to Blythe. Blythe's the one laying this out for you.
Everything is logistics.
You're not being smart. Okay.
Everything is logistics. And Blythe, I have to say this on the show. You have the best smile in logistics.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, she does.
I've been following you for a long time.
Thank you so much. Yes. It was awesome to finally meet you.
Yeah, it was cool. And
he's a little bit
advice.
I'm just trying to help my fellow marketers out here. I was once in their shoes 10 years ago as an executive assistant at a 3PL dealing with a bunch of sales knuckleheads. And so I'm trying to help them, or help myself 10 years ago, is the advice I try to give out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everything at TMSA and then coming on here.
Likewise, you as well. Thank you guys for having
me. That's it. I'm going to baseball.
It's hard for me to say I'm sorry.
Bye, guys. Thanks, Blythe.
Thank you.